All right, another week in the books and another big change to our tier list. Let's get right into it, starting at the bottom with two teams who are always in perpetual darkness, the Sharks and Blackhawks. No change there. The Nashville Predators remain in their own tier, the pathetic tier, and they also had the worst week of anybody on this list, incredibly. As far as the Nashville Predators have fallen off, they continue to prove that there is no bottom for them. Last week, they lost 4 games, including 2 to Buffalo and Pittsburgh, who I know are ahead of them in terms of points, but still, like Nashville, you were on such a not upswing, but like slightly better trajectory, and then you can completely biff it with a chance to get a couple of pretty easy wins. Just once again confirming that this team is a complete shit show and is going to be selling off major parts any day now. In the terrible tier, we have 7 teams, starting with the Utah Hockey Club, who had a very bad week, along with the Anaheim Ducks, Pittsburgh Penguins, Philadelphia Flyers, the Buffalo Sabres, who had the best week of anybody, the Canadiens, and the Seattle Kraken. Now, for the Utah Hockey Club, it was a rough week just in terms of the quality of competition that they were facing. Pittsburgh, Columbus, and St. Louis. They lost 2 of those games against Pittsburgh and Columbus in overtime, so a little bit understandable, but still, Utah was a team that was kind of in the playoff hunt a little bit, and to lose 3 games that honestly they should have won every single one of them, really bad look for them. And then on the other side, the Buffalo Sabres finally putting together a really good week. Obviously, that huge game against Boston that they had with 2 hat tricks from Thompson and Peterka was awesome. They beat Nashville, which, you know, that's a competitive game by 2 bad teams, but they also beat the Devils by a goal. So congratulations, Buffalo. You're not as terrible as I thought. Moving up to the bad tier, we have the St. Louis Blues, Vancouver Canucks, who just obviously overhauled their entire team over the weekend, Boston Bruins, and New York Rangers. Nothing to say in particular about any of these teams, other than, of course, Vancouver making those big moves. Boston had a pretty up and down week last week, and even though they're still kind of in the wildcard spot, I don't have much faith that they're going to be able to hang around, especially with one of the teams above them, the Columbus Blue Jackets, who, I'm sorry, I wasn't familiar with your game. I keep counting the Blue Jackets out, and they keep going and winning games against talented teams. Last week, they got a win against a very good Vegas team. They beat Utah, as I mentioned. That's a sneaky good team, and they lost to Dallas, one of the best teams in the NHL. They just continue to be very impressive to me, and I gotta start putting more respect on their name. One tier above them, we have my babies of this year, the Calgary Chaos Goblins, who extremely on brand had a chaotic week last week. Flames, guys, I keep standing up for you, and then you keep going out and having shit weeks like this. Please, just be normal, I ask of the Chaos Goblins. Up above them, though, we have 4 teams in the mid tier, the Kings, Lightning, Islanders, and Devils. Islanders were not one of my biggest risers of the week because their winning streak ended in that loss to Florida, a very decisive loss, I might add, but still a very impressive week by them. They beat Colorado, who's a very good team, and they beat Tampa in overtime. And the Isles are now just 4 points out of a playoff spot with a game in hand on the Blue Jackets. Moving up to the good, not great tier, we had 2 teams who went in very different directions this week. The Red Wings did very well, the Golden Knights did very bad, and we have the Senators and Wild along with them. Now, Detroit, a 3-0 week in an impressive West Coast swing against the Oilers, Flames, and Canucks. Even though I have the Canucks in the bad tier, I still think those are all 3 teams who are going to give you a tough run for your money, so impressive wins there by Detroit. On the other side for Vegas, yes, they lost 2 of their games in overtime, including the loss to Dallas, which is fine in my opinion. Losing to Columbus, a little bit more understandable, but losing to the Rangers, really not a good look for the Vegas Golden Knights, who only got 2 points in 3 games. Then we move up to the contenders here, which has 5 teams, the Avalanche, Toronto Maple Leafs, Carolina Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, and Washington Capitals. Now, the Panthers had a nice week. Not the toughest of schedules. They played the Blackhawks, Kings, and Islanders, but they won all 3 games, won them on regulation. So a pretty good week by the Florida Panthers in my estimation. And that just leaves the top tier, the elite tier. The Oilers have kind of come back down to earth after last week and are joined in that tier by the Dallas Stars and Winnipeg Jets. So we'll see how this tier list moves next week as we prepare for the Four Nations tournament to see where all the teams settle before the break.